Hey everybody, it's Katie from Bobby Hair Studio. Welcome to another one of my color corrections. Now this is just a disclaimer, as it is a color correction service, my client is aware that there is a high risk of breakage because she has old highlights below this demi-permanent color she had put in her root area. And that's the area that we're gonna have a hard time lightening past today because the demi has such strong undertones in it, it does not wanna be lifted. But also her highlights are super fragile and we do end up getting some breakage. So just keep that in mind. Not every hair appointment you're gonna get the healthiest hair results. So as long as you're happy to get a haircut where you have a full understanding of what kind of damage you're gonna be getting with your hair appointment, I think it's just time that everybody understands the realistic expectation for an appointment. But this is what we got her hair to today, and I just wanted to show you that ahead of time so you know kind of what we're in for. So for her root and the banding area, we're going to be mixing together some Blonde Me Lightener, 7 volume, and Cool Additive. Now some of you guys have probably seen that I've used Cool Additive before. I like to use it on people who have darker hair naturally, who have a little bit more warm tones like orange and red in their hair naturally, or I use it on some of my clients who've had previous color that include chocolate and red undertones in it so that it lifts out with a little bit more toning action. To be on the super gentle side, I'm going to mix equal parts Blonde Me Clay Lightener and the regular Blonde Me Powder Lightener and 7 volume together for her ends. Any areas that used to be highlighted, this is what I'm using on them because it's super, super gentle. Honestly, there's not much that's gentler than this. Our goal today is essentially to get her as blonde as possible but still maintain a little bit of dimension and keep a warm tone of her blonde so that any of her lowlights that are left out blend in nicely. It's something to keep in mind that if you're going to lift your client to a really pale blonde, keep in mind whatever is being left out and the tone of that, because this hair color is quite warm, so she is pairing it with a warm light blonde rather than a cool light blonde, because if she just does cool light blonde, it'll look really muddy mixed in with these warm, almost coppery tones in between the blonde highlights. Now the way that I'm getting that dimension is I'm doing, with my highlight patterning, I'm doing slice, slice, weave. So my slices do not have any drops between them. It's essentially just 2 chunks of blonde and then a weave right after that. And that's gonna allow for a ton of dimension and the blonde to really pop away from the lowlights that are left out. And I'm not leaving out much of the lowlights. It still ends up looking like a decent amount once we get to the end result. But keep in mind when you're foiling, err on the side of making them blonder, because honestly you can add in lowlights, but it's a real pain in the butt to go and add more highlights later. The back section is an entire section on its own. Some of my pieces I am backcombing, some of them I'm not. It just depends on how close I want to get to the scalp in certain areas of the hair, because I will be doing a root shadow. I'm also bricklaying the entire back so that I don't have to do the hair in quadrants. I am doing it as the section in the back is one big section, and each of the sides, and then a mohawk up along the top. Some of the foils have a little bit more of her old low light in there, so I'll be using more of the darker blue, stronger formula than I would be of the lighter blue ends formula. And it just kind of depends on what you're seeing in each foil as you go. Just use your judgment as needed. Something you'll notice as well is I'm changing up the size of my weaves with basically every weave that I do. Some of them are going to be on the chunkier side, some of them are going to be on the finer side, but essentially I don't want everything to be an exact replica of each other. I want to have some chunky foils and some finer foils so that I get that really soft dimensional look where you can really tell the difference between the blonde and the more ambery color that's left in between. You may be wondering why I chose to mix my 2 types of bleach together, and it's just because I find that Blonde Me Powder Lightener actually lifts really, really well, and it lifts very high, but I don't actually need that much lift out of the lightener when it comes to the ends because they've already been pre-lightened to their max capacity, but they have been covered over with old color. So I want to remove it. And no, color remover isn't going to remove all of the color. It can remove some of it, but it's not going to remove all of it, bringing her back to a beautiful light blonde. You do actually need some of the power of bleach. So when you actually mix it with a clay-based developer, clay lighteners don't actually lift that much. They lift, in my experiences, like probably 2 to 3 levels at most. So when you mix the two of them together, you kind of bring it down from either a 3-level lift to a 9-level lift, down to somewhere near like a 5-level lift. And I've mixed it with a lot of 7-volume developers, so they don't have that much power to it. It's just like slightly more powerful than a color remover, but much less powerful than full power lightener. The way I'm foiling up towards the apex center of the head is being kept in mind with all of my sections. When they all come to meet kind of in the back area of the head, I don't want all the foil types looking really different. So I am giving it a softer result by adding a little bit more back combing to all of my slices, and I'm making my weaves a little bit smaller and with more of the hair left out of the foil. What this does is it adds some softness and dimension towards the back top of her head so she has a softer grow out. And what we're doing here is anything that's been weaved out of the hair, you guessed it, I'm actually foiling that too. I'm just foiling down closer to the ends, and it's just kind of this method that I've been using for a little while when one of my clients comes in and they want dimension, but they also want the ends to be really solid. This gives them a different kind of lift in those ends, but it still makes them lighter, so they get more of that ombre effect. I'm doing this after I've finished completing all of my sections so that they lift all very evenly, and overall this is going to give her a really pretty effect. Now the money piece might be something that you wouldn't put into a typical foiling set, but I still like to include money pieces even when I like to take my clients to more of a hella blonde, because it just gives them that little extra bit of pop of blonde in the front. It also adds to their dimension overall. It makes the dark areas stand out more and the light areas stand out more if you don't have the same amount of foiling in all of the places of the head. If you have blonder areas and darker areas, it just does help give a more defined dimensional high-end look. So my money piece is going to be 3 decent sized slices all in a row right in front of the ear. And the way that I finish that off to add a little bit more dimension is I finish off with a thicker weave at the end of that. Then I'm going to be switching up how I foil the sides of the hair by going more horizontal, but still on a slight angle, so that we still kind of blend those money pieces into where the back is. So here you can see on the sides how I'm foiling. Again, it is a horizontal foil, but it's slightly diagonal forward. And what that's doing is it's connecting the back area foiling in the same exact type of pattern the way that I've been doing it the whole time, by going slice, slice, weave the whole time. But when I do get up to the top, you'll see that I do like to do thinner weaves and more back comb slices just to kind of connect all the areas that come together in the back, like I discussed before. And just a quick side note, you guys, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel, because it does take an immense amount of work for me to, film all of these and put together tutorials with as much information as I can for you guys to all learn for free. So I'd really appreciate a subscribe and a like and even a comment if you can. Thank you. Here is the start of the mohawk section. Again, I am back combing my first slice to get in there, to give it a little bit of blonde, but not going up too high either, to maintain that soft teardrop shape. I'm working from the back to the front and just again doing slice, slice, weave all the way up to the front. And unfortunately my camera did die as I got to the front, but all I'm really doing for the money piece at the front is 4 slices in a row, and a couple of them are mildly back combed just to give a little bit of softness to the front of the face, because the hair is more finely distributed, and so you will see lines in the hair a little more solidly when there is finer hair distribution. So that's why I do some of my back combing in the front pieces, but you won't get to see that because my camera died. Sorry guys. I did manage to plug my camera in while I was filming this part, and then this is just how you can see how her lift ended up being. And you can see that there is that kind of like orangey red, almost like a salmon colored band in her hair. And this is some of the breakage that I wanted to show you guys from the ends. This is all where those old highlights were that just didn't want to be fully highlighted again, as it's totally understandable. The first time they were highlighted, they were lifted to their max potential. I'm putting on the Schwarzkopf Chroma ID bonding mask with toner in it, so it gives her a little bit of a pre-tone and some treatment as we go mix up her toner formula. Today's toner is TBH, True Beautiful Honest by Schwarzkopf. I mixed together 8-15, 10-15, 9-06, and 6 volume together, and I'm putting that in her hair to cover all of the highlights, and then I'll be doing a bit of a root tap after that with a different formulation. What I love about TBH is that it's such a canvas balancer. Like, look at how much more balanced her highlights look and how much more even they look. I am going in with Olaplex number 2 to give her a second treatment while I put on her root tap. Now, some people are going to ask, is that going to dilute it a little bit? It probably will, but I'm not really trying to put too much of it into the roots, more so into the ends. This is where you can see that the ends are a little bit stretchy and bouncy, and this is where the breakage is coming from. But if I do the same type of pulling up in the top, there's no stretching and bouncing. The top is totally healthy and feels great. So for the shadow root formula, I did Schwarzkopf Vibrance 8-11 and 9-0 and 6 volume. And this is just to give her a softening of the root area. Because we did highlights, I didn't want it to be like a root shadow. I just wanted to slightly soften them a little bit. Here's her before. And here's her after. I hope you guys really like this video because honestly, it's a little scary putting out there a video where you have some breakage in the hair. But honestly, when it comes to the client's expectation, if you set them at the beginning with an expectation of this could happen and they fully understand and they're willing to get a haircut and do treatments to their hair, it's totally okay. This is her old banding that we still see a tiny shadow of it in her hair right now, but I think you guys might agree that this is a lot better of a result than what she came in with, and my client is over the moon with her blonde. She's happy to be back to a shade that she's comfortable with. So I hope you guys liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on what you thought about today's video.